So I do believe that movement training can be broken down into 5 pillars as seen down below. Now these pillars are quite broad, but I do believe they encapsulate every aspect of movement training and what the movement culture kind of moves towards. So hopefully with this video we could break things down into general rules in a way that you might be able to apply to your own training to help you progress further and better understand what areas you are lacking in and what areas you can develop in. So without further ado, we'll get moving talking about compounds. Let's go. So compounds, as the name suggests, is the very basic things we do as humans. Typically, pushing, pulling, and squatting. Now, these you can imagine we do day in, day out. We do it at the gym with weights, but they encapsulate so many different exercises and different aspects of movement training. In the movement culture, Olympic lifting, typical bodybuilding exercises, and gymnastic rings are massively popular. And these are encapsulated in this compound kind of range, I would say. So you can imagine prehistorically we'd be running, you might have to pull a log out of the way, you'll have to jump over a rock, you'll have to push, I don't know, something out the way. Again, very general movements here. Now these are very fundamental multi-joint, multi-muscle movements, and these, as I said before, can be applied to Olympic lifting, to your clean and press, to dipping, to pulling up with weights, to bench press, to inverted rows. Any of these movements can then be encapsulated in compounds. Now in, I guess, a typical sense of movement culture and its training, it's very much more based around compound movements. You won't see many people doing, I guess, bicep curls and lat raises specifically in the movement culture. It's more likely you're going to see compound movements as they're more generalized and more applicable to different sports, and they very nicely assist movements, multi-plane movements and things like that. Not to say that any of these other categories don't, also apply to compounds. There are many multi-plane movements which are also compounds. Just think about kind of walking lunges and things, for example. Multi-plane movements, but they're also compounds. I think if you apply this training to your current training, many people may be lacking on progressively overloading their training in the gym with resistance exercises. And it's quite overlooked during the movement culture because we're so focused on these multi-plane movements, quadrupedal movements, and reactions. But this is a very fundamental which will supplement and complement every single area and every other pillar of your movement training. Now, when I refer to multi-plane movement, it's a very generic term, but you can imagine it as someone tumbling and cartwheeling and flipping, or someone doing some capoeira, floreo movements, or someone just dancing. When you look at the science of movements, you've got 3 major planes of movements. Without going into too much detail, you've got kind of this range of movements, kind of hinging at the hips. You've got a pushing and pulling, and you've got kind of this side-to-side movement as well. And these are planes of movement. This is the literal science of movement and how we move as, kind of in our physiology as humans, how we move. Now, when you do look into these, very skill-based movements such as dancing or martial art forms or tumbling, you will be moving with hip hinging and jumping and twisting and turning. And it's a very vital part of movement culture and movement training. It's very literally just the science of movements. And I think when you look at practices to develop this skill, you are looking at dance, kung fu forms, martial art forms. The best practice I found was where Ido came from, capoeira. When you do capoeira, it's very spontaneous movements through every plane of movement, from a high bridge to a low bridge to cartwheels and then kicks. And differently to compounds, to train compounds, of course, all you do is you might pop into the gym, and one week you do 3 sets of 10 on a bench press or dips, and the next day you do 4 sets of 8 and increase your volume like that. With the, multi-plane movements, it's very much a case of neuromuscular development, I guess. You're teaching your nervous system to move the muscles in a certain pattern, a certain way, so it requires time. You can't just say, right, 3 sets of 10 of this dancing routine. It's different for everybody, and it just requires time and repetition to develop. So this is much more time-based and should be a practice within itself to then supplement the rest of your movement training. And the compounds should strengthen you through the range of motion in these multi-plane movements. Now, I was really unsure about including quadrupedal as it falls so heavily under multiplane movements. But very simply because there is such a subculture of movements around quadrupedal movements, such as animal flow and other things like this, I feel like it has become a bit of a practice within itself. And another point is the amount of videos that Ido has kind of put up. I think 10 months ago he put up a video of why he doesn't push up anymore. It's quadrupedal movement tied in with the benefits of a compound exercise. So it's almost like an in-between sometimes of compound and multiplane movement, but it fits into both sometimes. I thought I'd put it in its own. Very borderline. But quadrupedal movement very simply means all four limbs. This can be the monkey walk, the sumo shuffle, the roll, cartwheels, things like these. These are quadrupedal movements. Whether you start on all fours or end on all fours, it's all quadrupedal. And it's so beneficial to coordination, to balance, and just to opening up a whole new plane of motion when you touch the floor, for example, your entire posterior chain stretches, which I'm sitting on a chair right now, is something that's happening. Like by sitting on a chair, my posterior chain, all down my back, my glutes, my hamstrings, the back of my legs, it's all getting tighter because I'm not stretching it. When you simply touch the floor, it all stretches. Very fundamental to anyone, even if they're not in the movement culture, practicing movement as a thing within itself. As rehabilitation, quadrupedal movements can be so incredible. And this will tie in massively with your compound work, and probably with your multiplane movement too. So it doesn't need so much stress on it being its own practice per se, unless you are looking to make it a practice by itself, such as animal flow. But it will be touched on heavily within multiplane movements. And by doing multiplane movements, you'll naturally become better at moving spontaneously, and therefore quadrupedal movements will happen much, much easier. So I'd say this is almost like a subsection. Doesn't require too much time to kind of dedicate and get too good at, because you do practice it within different sections of this. But yeah, 4 limb movements, quadrupedal movements. Hanging and inversions are some movements that are not touched on in so many different practices. You may think of yoga as a very holistic movement practice, but it doesn't have any hanging in it, I believe, anyway. So hanging and inversions, mainly, pull-ups, swinging, handstand push-ups, one-armed handstands, headstands, things like this. Now again, it will tie into compounds. If you're doing a handstand push-up, that is a compound, but at the same time you are inverted. A straight handstand is not a compound necessarily, it is more just an inversion. It's not a multiplane movement because you're static. So it becomes a category of its own. The same with hanging. Hanging it's the best way to decompress the spine. Apart from going zero gravity, hanging is the one, essentially, to decompress the spine, which is so, again, amazing for physiotherapy and rehabilitation. Now, these practices, they do blend into other ones. You've got handstand walking downstairs, which can become multi-plane. Monkey bars can be multi-plane as well. But these are things that are more sport specific, unless you're specifically training for, Ninja Warrior, or you're specifically training for hand balancing. These will come into a lot of into play with a lot of different sports. I know personally I did a lot of my hanging when I was working at a Ninja Warrior gym, and I did a lot of my inversions when I was doing parkour. These dive kongs, these vaults where you're diving head first, handstand walking, cartwheels into flips. These are all applications, but if you don't have a dedicated practice kind of to inversions and hanging, then you do need to implement them into your training. And the good thing is they don't require a massive amount of time, unless you are looking to get very specific into the skill and do a one-armed handstand or do a one-arm pull-up. Hanging and inversions can be incredibly basic, that anyone can do, or so advanced that only a few people can do them in any major city. And what I would consider the final pillar is coordination and reaction. These are only really reserved for when you do sports. Normally you'd only work on your reaction time and coordination if you were a boxer or a juggler or doing circus skills or anything of the likes, table tennis, racket sports, but it's not practiced elsewhere. Day to day, someone who goes to the gym will not be practicing hand-eye coordination. It's not considered part of fitness, but it's a massive part of movement training as it can be so applicable and transferable as a skill. I know personally from my practice doing Wing Chun, we had incredibly fast hands and hand work. That has allowed me to be a pretty good table tennis player, and juggling has just made my clumsiness reduced tenfold because I can now catch things which I wouldn't have done before. But there are so many more applications to it where you can, of course, the point of generalization is to just go and do any practice and be alright at it, essentially. I am fairly confident that I could go into any catching sport, throwing sport, and be much better than someone who didn't have a dedicated kind of sport, you know, where you do catch and throw. That general practice has helped me massively, and boxing can be such a great one. It can be a warm-up, juggling can be a warm-up, games where you might throw the ball down, catch it, stuff like that. Again, massively applicable to this skill set, amazing as a warm-up, cool down, as a group warm-up, fitness class, I used to do that with some of my old clients. It's so applicable, but so underused. You're essentially training your body with all this power and strength and speed that you've trained into an actual practical use. So now we'll talk about how you can split your training among these and how I would split it personally time-wise. Now, something I would really like to highlight before we get into this is me. This is my personal time dedication, what I have available and what I want to develop. I am not massive on becoming super strong or really big and muscly. I want some solid strength, but more so I want healthy, strong and movement ability tied in with the benefits of quadrupedal movement. The hand-eye coordination I'm fairly decent at already, so I don't need to put as much time into that. And the hanging and inversions are something I need to put more time into, but again, not massively because I've done it a lot in the past, so I still have a fair bit of skill in that sector. My main thing is multi-plane movements and compounds, and then I listed them throughout. So a typical day would be, a typical day of training, I guess, would be me waking up and maybe doing some multi-plane movements, some spinal waves, some stretches, just waking up and doing something like that, maybe going on a run. Next would be, say I go to the gym, right, during this day. It would be a warm-up, perhaps of some hand-eye coordination. I'm going to start by bouncing a ball on the floor, catching it, maybe some boxing on some pads, good hand-eye coordination there, juggling, stuff like that. I would then go and warm up doing some hanging, some inversions, some handstands, a little bit of gentle movement there, the hanging and inversions more so. I would then go do my compounds, the big heavy things that require lots of attention and lots of energy. That would be maybe a good 40-minute chunk of my time at the gym, whereas the warm-up might be 15 minutes, maximum 20. I would then move on to multi-plane movements and quadrupedal movements. So doing my flows, doing my improvised movements, that would be in a studio space. And that would just be building that mobility, that spontaneity, and that skill base, essentially. And then I'll just kind of cool off with some gentler movements and finish with that. Throughout the day, I would probably do a little bit here and there of a little bit of juggling on the side, a few handstands around the house, and they would be scattered throughout. But I think those percentages are fairly representative of how I would split things. Let me know how you might. It's a very personal thing, so have a think how you might want to split things. Let me know if I left out any categories as well. I'm curious to know. Let me know down in the comments. And please do share this video if you found it useful. Much appreciated. And until next time, have a lovely rest of your day. Peace.